The champagne flute in Kelsey Mitchell's hand trembled slightly as she scanned the opulent ballroom where her band was setting up. Chandeliers dripped crystal light onto marble floors, and the air smelled of money, old money, the kind that didn't need to announce itself. This wasn't their usual venue. Dive bars and local music festivals were more their speed. But when a representative from Xavier Industries had approached them with an obscene amount of money to play this corporate gala, saying no wasn't an option. "Stop looking so terrified," Maya whispered, adjusting her drum kit behind Kelsey. "We've played for crowds before. Not crowds that could buy and sell us with their pocket change," Kelsey replied, watching men in tailored suits and women dripping in diamonds filter into the room. "What if they hate us? Then we take their money and run," Maya shrugged. "Besides, the Resonants have never bombed a show. We're not starting tonight." Kelsey nodded, though her stomach still churned. Their indie rock band had been gaining traction in the Philadelphia music scene, but this Manhattan corporate event was different territory entirely. She smoothed down the black dress she'd splurged on, simple but elegant, showing just enough leg to be interesting without being inappropriate. Her auburn hair fell in waves past her shoulders, and she'd even applied makeup, a rarity for gigs. "5 minutes, people," called their bassist, Jonah, plugging in his equipment. That's when she saw him. He entered without fanfare, unlike many of the other executives who seemed to announce themselves with loud laughs and louder personalities. Tall and broad-shouldered in a perfectly fitted charcoal suit, he moved with the quiet confidence of someone who never needed to demand attention. His dark hair was cut short at the sides but left slightly longer on top, and even from across the room she could see the intensity in his eyes as he surveyed the gathering. "That's him," Maya hissed, following her gaze. "Sebastian Xavier, the man himself. The billionaire who's paying us." Kelsey whispered back, unable to tear her eyes away. "The very one. Built Xavier Industries from a small shipping company into a global logistics empire. 33 and already worth more billions than I can count." Sebastian Xavier circulated through the room, exchanging greetings and handshakes. Unlike the other executives who seemed to be performing, his interactions appeared genuine, his smile reaching his eyes when he spoke to an older man Kelsey assumed was a colleague. "Okay, showtime," Jonah announced, clapping his hands. "Kelsey, you with us?" she blinked, dragging her attention back to the band. "Yeah, of course." The lights dimmed slightly and Kelsey stepped up to the microphone. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she looked out at the sea of expectant faces. "Good evening, everyone," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "We're the Resonants and we're honored to be here tonight. Let's start with something to get this party moving." She nodded to the band, and they launched into their set. They started with covers crowd pleasers that had the executives nodding along appreciatively. Kelsey's voice, a smoky alto that could climb to surprising heights, filled the elegant space. As always, once the music started, her nervousness evaporated. This was where she belonged. 3 songs in, she finally allowed herself to seek out Sebastian Xavier in the crowd. He stood near the back, a tumbler of amber liquid in his hand, watching them intently. Their eyes met briefly and something electric passed between them. She nearly missed her cue for the chorus. When they transitioned to their original songs, Kelsey worried the crowd might lose interest, but to her surprise, the response was enthusiastic. By the time they reached Midnight Crossroads, their most popular original, people were actually dancing. She closed her eyes, letting herself get lost in the music, the lyrics she'd written late one night after a particularly painful breakup pouring from her soul. When she opened them again, Sebastian Xavier had moved closer to the stage, his gaze fixed on her with an intensity that made her skin prickle. After their set, as they packed up their instruments, a tall woman in a sleek pantsuit approached. "Miss Mitchell." "I'm Vanessa Patel, Mr. Xavier's executive assistant. He was very impressed with your performance and would like to speak with you privately if you have a moment." Kelsey exchanged a glance with Maya, whose eyebrows shot up to her hairline. Sure," Kelsey replied, setting down her guitar. Now, if that's convenient. Kelsey followed Vanessa through the crowd to a quieter corner of the ballroom where Sebastian Xavier waited, his back to them as he looked out over the city lights through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Mr. Xavier, Miss Mitchell is here," Vanessa announced before discreetly retreating. Sebastian turned and Kelsey's breath caught. Up close, he was even more striking, dark eyes framed by thick lashes, a strong jawline softened by the hint of a 5 o'clock shadow and full lips that curved into a smile when he saw her. "Miss Mitchell," he said, extending his hand. "Sebastian Xavier, your performance was extraordinary." His voice was deep and rich, with just a hint of roughness around the edges. His hand engulfed hers, warm and firm. "Thank you, Mr. Xavier," she managed, painfully aware of how small her own hand felt in his. "And thank you for hiring us. It's quite a step up from our usual venues." "Please call me Sebastian." He released her hand and gestured to the view. "I'm particularly impressed by your original compositions. Midnight Crossroads has been stuck in my head since the first time I heard it." Kelsey blinked in surprise. "You've heard our music before tonight." A small smile played at his lips. "I make it a point to know who I'm hiring. I caught your performance at the Foundry last month." "You were at the Foundry?" she asked incredulously, trying to imagine this polished billionaire in the gritty underground venue where they frequently played. "Incognito, but yes." He sipped his drink. "I have diverse tastes. I never would have pegged you as an indie rock fan. There's a lot about me that might surprise you." His eyes held hers for a beat too long before he continued. "Actually, I had an ulterior motive for asking to speak with you tonight. I'd like to offer you your band another opportunity." "What kind of opportunity?" Xavier Industries is launching a new sustainability initiative next month. "We're hosting an exclusive event at my estate in the Hamptons. 3 days with various industry leaders and environmental innovators. I'd like the Resonants to be the entertainment." Kelsey's mind raced. This would be huge for them, exposure to people who could open doors they couldn't even imagine. "That sounds amazing," she said carefully. "But I'd need to discuss it with the band. Of course, the compensation would be substantial and all expenses would be covered." He pulled a card from his inside pocket and handed it to her. "My personal contact information. Think it over, discuss it with your band, and let me know." Their fingers brushed as she took the card, and that same electric current shot up her arm. "I will," she promised. "Excellent." He smiled, and it transformed his face, softening the intensity into something warm and almost boyish. "I look forward to hearing from you, Kelsey." The way he said her name made her stomach flip. "I should get back to my band," she said, suddenly needing space to clear her head. "Of course. Thank you again for the performance tonight." As she walked away, she could feel his eyes on her back. What did Billionaire boy want? Maya demanded the moment Kelsey returned. Kelsey held up the business card. "To offer us another gig. A big one." The band erupted in excited chatter as she explained the opportunity, but Kelsey found her gaze drawn back to Sebastian, now engaged in conversation with a group of executives. As if sensing her attention, he looked up, caught her eye, and smiled. 3 days later, after much deliberation and excitement from the band, Kelsey dialed the number on Sebastian's card. To her surprise, he answered himself. "Sebastian Xavier." "Mr. Xavier, it's Kelsey Mitchell." "Kelsey." His voice warmed. "I was hoping to hear from you. The band has discussed your offer and we'd love to accept." "That's wonderful news." The genuine pleasure in his voice made her smile. "Actually, I was wondering if you might be available for lunch tomorrow to discuss the details in person." Kelsey hesitated. She had a shift at the cafe where she worked part-time, but this was more important. "I could do lunch." "Perfect. There's a place in Soho I think you'll enjoy. Shall we say noon?" After agreeing on the details, Kelsey hung up and stared at her phone, trying to convince herself this was purely professional. The restaurant Sebastian had chosen was understated but clearly exclusive. The maitre d' led Kelsey to a secluded table where Sebastian was already waiting. He stood when she approached, his eyes taking in her simple sundress and denim jacket. "You look lovely," he said, pulling out her chair. "Thank you," she replied, settling into her seat. "This place is beautiful." "They do the best crudo in the city," he smiled. "I took the liberty of ordering a selection of appetizers, but please order whatever you'd like for your main course." As they ate, the conversation flowed surprisingly easily. Sebastian asked thoughtful questions about her music, her influences, and her journey. She found herself opening up about her childhood in a small Pennsylvania town, her parents' initial skepticism about her musical aspirations, and her struggle to make it in a competitive industry. "What about you?" she asked eventually. "The media paints you as this wonderkind who built an empire before 30, but there must be more to the story." Something flickered across his face, vulnerability, perhaps before he spoke. "The short version is that I inherited a failing shipping company from my father when I was 24. He wasn't the best businessman, spent more time drinking than working. The company was 3 months from bankruptcy when he died." "I'm sorry," she said softly. He shrugged. "We weren't close, but I was determined not to let his legacy end in failure. I mortgaged everything, pivoted the company toward logistics technology rather than just physical shipping, and worked 20-hour days for years." "And now you're a billionaire," she observed. "Now I have responsibilities to thousands of employees and shareholders," he corrected gently. "The money is incidental." She raised an eyebrow skeptically. "Okay, the money is nice," he admitted with a laugh. "But it's not the point. Building something that matters, that employs people and solves real problems, that's the point." His passion was infectious, and Kelsey found herself drawn to him more with each passing moment. This wasn't the cold, calculating businessman she'd expected. "So, this sustainability initiative," she said, steering the conversation back to safer ground. "Tell me about it." His eyes lit up as he explained the project, a massive investment in carbon capture technology and sustainable shipping practices. By the time they finished lunch, 2 hours had passed in what felt like minutes. "I've taken up too much of your time," Sebastian said, signaling for the check. "No, this was," she searched for the right word, "enlightening." Outside the restaurant, his driver waited with a sleek black car. "Can I give you a lift?" Sebastian offered. "I'm actually enjoying the day. Think I'll walk for a bit." He nodded, then surprised her by taking her hand. "I'm really looking forward to having you at the event, Kelsey." The warmth of his fingers around hers sent her pulse racing. "Me too." She watched his car pull away, then started walking, trying to make sense of the butterflies in her stomach. This was business, she reminded herself firmly. Just business. Over the next 3 weeks, as the event approached, Sebastian called several times to finalize details, conversations that inevitably drifted from business to the personal. They discovered shared tastes in literature and film, debated the merits of various musicians, and laughed over childhood stories. Each call left Kelsey more conflicted than the last. "You're falling for him," Meyer accused one night during band practice. "I'm not," Kelsey protested weakly. "He's a client, that's all. A client who happens to be gorgeous, brilliant, and clearly into you." Kelsey shook her head. "Men like Sebastian Xavier don't date women like me. What talented and beautiful, regular non-billionaires who didn't go to fancy schools and don't know which fork to use at dinner." Maya rolled her eyes. "Have you considered that maybe that's exactly what he likes about you?" The day of the Hamptons event arrived, and Kelsey's nerves were at an all-time high. Sebastian sent a private car to transport the band and their equipment to his estate, a sprawling property overlooking the Atlantic Ocean. The house itself was a masterpiece of modern architecture, all clean lines and glass walls that blurred the boundary between inside and out. Sebastian greeted them in the driveway, casual in dark jeans and a light blue button-down shirt with the sleeves rolled up to expose tanned forearms. "Welcome," he said, his eyes finding Kelsey immediately. "Let me show you to your accommodations." Each band member had been assigned a luxurious guest suite, and a staff member was available to help with anything they needed. The performance space was set up on a stone terrace overlooking the ocean, with state-of-the-art sound equipment already in place. "This is incredible," Kelsey breathed, taking in the view. "I'm glad you approve," Sebastian replied, standing close enough that she could smell his cologne, something woody with hints of citrus. "The guests arrive tomorrow. Tonight I thought you might join me for dinner." "All of you," he added quickly, including the rest of the band in his invitation. Dinner was a relaxed affair on the deck, with Sebastian proving to be an excellent host. He'd remembered Maya was vegetarian and Jonah couldn't eat shellfish. He asked about their music, listened intently to their stories, and made them all feel valued rather than simply hired help. As the evening wound down, the band members drifted off to their rooms one by one until only Kelsey and Sebastian remained, sitting side by side on a plush outdoor sofa, watching the moonlight play on the waves. "Thank you for tonight," she said softly. "You didn't have to go to all this trouble." "It's not trouble." He turned toward her, his knee brushing against hers. "I enjoy your company. All of you," he added, though his eyes told a different story. Kelsey felt herself being drawn in, leaning slightly toward him. For a moment she thought he might kiss her, but instead he stood, offering his hand to help her up. "You should rest. Big day tomorrow," she nodded, trying to hide her disappointment. "Good night, Sebastian." His fingers lingered on hers a moment too long. "Good night, Kelsey." The first day of the event passed in a blur of activity. The Resonants performed 2 sets for the assembled guests, CEOs, tech innovators, and environmental leaders from around the world. Sebastian moved through the crowd with easy confidence, but Kelsey caught him watching her perform more than once, that same intense gaze making her heart race. That night, after their evening set, Kelsey changed into a simple dress and wandered through the garden, needing a moment of solitude. She found a secluded bench near a small pond and sat, watching the stars reflect on the water's surface. "Mind if I join you?" She looked up to find Sebastian standing there, jacket discarded, tie loosened, looking less like a billionaire and more like a regular man at the end of a long day. "It's your garden," she said with a small smile, making room for him. He sat beside her, stretching his long legs out in front of him. "You were amazing tonight. Thank you." "I mean it, Kelsey. There's something about the way you sing, it's like you're telling secrets the rest of us have been keeping from ourselves." The unexpected poetry of his words caught her off guard. "That might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said about my music." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment before he spoke again. "Can I be honest with you, please? I didn't just hire your band because you're talented, though you absolutely are." He turned to face her, their knees touching. "I hired you because I haven't been able to get you out of my mind since I first heard you sing at the Foundry." Kelsey's breath caught. "Sebastian, I know this is complicated. I'm your client. There's a power dynamic I don't want to abuse. But I needed you to know that my interest in you goes beyond your music." Her heart hammered against her ribs. "Why me? You could have anyone." "That's exactly it," he said, his voice dropping lower. "I could have anyone who wants my money, my influence, the idea of me they've created in their head. But you see me, the real me, and you're not impressed by any of this." He gestured vaguely toward the house. "I wouldn't say I'm not impressed," she corrected gently. "But you're right. It's not about the money or the house. It's about the man who works to make a difference, who remembers that Meyer is vegetarian, who still feels responsible for his father's legacy even though he surpassed it 100-fold." Sebastian reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, his fingers lingering against her cheek. "May I kiss you, Kelsey Mitchell?" In answer, she leaned forward, closing the distance between them. His lips were soft but insistent against hers, his hand sliding to cup the back of her neck. The kiss deepened, and Kelsey found herself melting into him, her fingers curling into the fabric of his shirt. When they finally broke apart, both slightly breathless, Sebastian rested his forehead against hers. "I've been wanting to do that since the first time we met." "Me too," she admitted. They talked until the early hours of the morning, trading stories and dreams and fears. Sebastian confessed the loneliness of his position, how difficult it was to know if people liked him for himself or his wealth. Kelsey shared her doubts about her music career, her fear that she'd never break through, that she'd spend her life playing in dive bars and working side jobs to make rent. "Your talent is undeniable," Sebastian told her, holding her hand as they walked back toward the house as dawn approached. "The world just hasn't caught up yet." The next 2 days passed in a sweet haze. By day, Kelsey performed with her band and Sebastian attended to his guests. But they stole moments together, a brush of hands as they passed in a hallway, a private smile across a crowded room, late-night conversations that sometimes turned to kisses under the stars. On the final night, after the last guest had departed and the band had played their final song, Sebastian took Kelsey's hand and led her down to the beach. They walked barefoot in the sand, the waves occasionally washing over their toes. "What happens now?" Kelsey asked, voicing the question that had been hovering between them. "Now," Sebastian said, turning to face her, taking both her hands in his, "I ask if you'll have dinner with me next Friday. A proper date, not a business meeting, in New York. That's a long commute from Philadelphia." "I have a jet," he said with a wink, then grew serious. "Distance doesn't scare me, Kelsey. What scares me is letting you walk away without seeing where this could go." She studied his face in the moonlight, this man who had crashed into her life and upended her expectations. "I'd like that." His smile was brilliant. "There's something else." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. "This is for you, just you, not the band." Curious, she opened it to find a business card for one of the most prestigious record producers in the industry. "What is this?" "Thomas was one of the guests. He heard you perform and was as impressed as I was. He'd like to meet with you, hear more of your original material." Kelsey stared at the card in disbelief. "Sebastian, did you? I just made an introduction," he said quickly. "Your talent did the rest." "Thomas doesn't do favors, even for me. He genuinely believes in your music." Tears pricked at her eyes. "I don't know what to say. Say you'll meet with him. Say you'll let yourself believe you're as extraordinary as I know you are." She threw her arms around his neck, kissing him fiercely. "Thank you. Don't thank me," he murmured against her lips. "Just promise you'll still make time for me when you're a famous rock star." She laughed, her heart full. "I think that can be arranged." In the months that followed, Kelsey's life transformed. Thomas signed her to his label, and while the band continued to perform together, she also began developing solo material. Sebastian flew to Philadelphia. Every weekend he wasn't tied up with business, and Kelsey spent her free days in New York, gradually growing accustomed to the luxury of his world while ensuring she maintained her own identity and pursuits. 6 months after the Hamptons event, Kelsey's first solo single was released to critical acclaim and surprising commercial success. Sebastian hosted a release party at his Manhattan penthouse, inviting industry insiders and their closest friends. Late in the evening, as the celebration wound down, Sebastian led Kelsey out onto the terrace that overlooked Central Park. The city sparkled below them, a million lights reflecting the stars above. "I'm so proud of you," he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. She leaned back against his chest, savoring the solid warmth of him. "I couldn't have done it without you." "Yes, you could have." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "You were always going to shine, Kelsey. I just happened to be lucky enough to be there when you did." She turned in his arms to face him. "I love you, you know, not because of any of this," she gestured to the opulent apartment, the glamorous party behind them, "but because you make me feel seen. Really seen." "I love you too," he said simply. "More than I ever thought possible." 1 year to the day after they first met, Sebastian proposed on the same stage where Kelsey had first performed for Xavier Industries. She said yes immediately, laughing and crying as he slipped the ring onto her finger, a stunning but not ostentatious emerald that matched her eyes. Their wedding was an intimate affair at Sebastian's Hamptons estate, with the Resonants providing the music. though Jonah insisted Kelsey not sing at her own wedding. They wrote their own vows, each promising to support the other's dreams, to communicate honestly, and to never take their love for granted. At the reception, Sebastian surprised everyone by taking the microphone and inviting Kelsey to join him on a small stage set up on the terrace. "I know it's tradition for the couple to have their first dance," he said, his voice carrying over the assembled guests, "but my bride is a singer and I've been practicing something special." To Kelsey's astonishment, Sebastian began to sing not professionally by any means, but with heartfelt sincerity, a song he'd written for her, accompanying himself on guitar. The lyrics spoke of chance meetings and unexpected love, of music that bridged two worlds. When he finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Kelsey kissed him amid the applause, whispering against his lips, "I never knew you could sing." "Only for you," he whispered back. "Always for you." 3 years later, as Kelsey's second album climbed the charts and Sebastian's sustainable logistics initiative revolutionized the shipping industry, they welcomed their first child, a daughter with her mother's auburn hair and her father's intense dark eyes. They named her Melody, a testament to the music that had brought them together. On quiet evenings, when the world's demands receded and it was just the three of them, Sebastian would often watch Kelsey sing their daughter to sleep, marveling at how a chance decision to hire an unknown band had changed his life so completely. Sometimes she'd catch him looking at her that way with wonder and gratitude, and love and her heart would swell with the same emotions. "What are you thinking about?" she asked one such night, after tucking Melody into her crib. Sebastian pulled her into his arms, swaying slightly as if dancing to music only they could hear. "I'm thinking about how glad I am that I went to the foundry that night, how close I came to missing you entirely. We would have found each other somehow," Kelsey said with certainty. "Some things are just meant to be. The billionaire and the singer," he smiled, pressing his forehead to hers. "No," she corrected gently. "Sebastian and Kelsey, just two people who fell in love." And as he kissed her, both knew it was the truest song either had ever heard.